welcome to Mr. Clark After Dark, everyone. My name is Lucas Clark, and I am a certified educator with Alberta Education and the Alberta Teachers Association. All conversations and interactions exchanged is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. In no way does the content discussed intend to be in violation of the ATA Code of Conduct or meant to target any individual student, teacher, or to belittle the profession in any way. If you have something that you would like me to discuss or have a story of your own to share, please reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com. You can also send a direct message on Instagram at Mr. Clark After Dark. Hope you enjoy the show, and please do not forget to subscribe. My guest here today is Kevin Garbuio, currently acting as an administrator with Holy Trinity Catholic High School. We had a great conversation discussing the role of a master's degree in education, when someone should pursue that, his experience in special education, as well as coaching many sports and being involved in the community, as well as discussing his ambition balance and trying to find a work-life balance while being such a large contributor to the community. Hope you enjoy.
I'm passionate about it. Summer school is interesting where it's like a faster pace, but I did teach social for 5 years. I did do it in summer school for like 8. I like social studies. That's something I'm passionate about. It's something I care about. So it's something that I don't mind doing, and I don't mind getting back into the classroom and like now applying my experiences as a vice principal to my experiences now as a teacher. I have learned a bit more on like how I want to teach better and how I want to do things better.
So being a VP now for 2 years,
Yes.
how when you always hear VPs and admin are so detached from what goes on in the classroom, I'm not saying I've said that, but I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
How do you kind of feel now that you're kind of teaching and kind of flipping a little bit? Do you deserve merit to that? Or do you think that's kind of...
I can see where if you're, I'm only out 2 years.
Yeah.
But I could see how it is different where you're trying, like when I'm a VP, I'm trying to keep the trains moving on time. Like that's a big part of it.
Oh,
is
okay.
I got to keep the trains going. How do we get kids back into class? How do we get kids build these relationships? How do we rebuild the relationships? How do we get kids working and getting them done? And then in the classroom, I can completely see where a teacher can get frustrated with this kid's not doing any work, and then they go see you, and now the work's done. This is getting done quickly, but they're not doing the process, and that's tough to manage. And I'm not even gonna pretend to think I have an answer for that, but it is two different goals at times. Like we're trying to get the kids graduated, we're trying to get the kids learning. There's like a process that a teacher wants to have in a classroom, and sometimes my process wouldn't be the same as that, and I can see where that gets frustrating. And also if there's like a combat happening every day in that class between the two personalities, that's something that gets forgotten sometimes as an outside observer.
So how do you kind of step into that role? If you have let's just say you have a grade 10 student clashing with their teacher every day, it's been over a month, how do you kind of... Because I know you're grade 7 and 10, right? You have assigned grades at your school.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of go into that class? What do you talk to the teacher about? Do you have an example without naming any names of what kind of worked or what didn't?
Not too much. Just when I was a teacher, I remember in grade 7, I'm trying to that was the one I battled with a student when I was younger and I was at a university and ex football player coach. I was rigid, and that rigidity caused battling against a student who's I'm not going to win. And I never realized that I'm not going to win. Now I know that.
So what do you mean by that, not going to win? And what did you, what kind of change?
When I think of I'm having a combat with a student, I want them to do it my way. I'm combating with the student. I want them to do it my way. I was well, they're going to conform. They're going to turn into the type of student that I want them to be and become the success. And no, I'm not. And I'm trying to not even adjust my strategy. I'm batting my head against it. And I see that now with younger teachers coming from my perspective as the administrator, who are like, this person needs to do it or else they need a consequence. But some people don't learn from consequences.
Yeah.
And it's more about, how do I build the relationship to get them to want to do the work, to try and get them to feel comfortable and wanting to take this risk or wanting to do it. To answer your question, what I experiences that I see is like having to like remind, like, this is a kid who's got XYZ going on, whatever their thing is, and focusing on how they're specific and unique, because what isn't working for them isn't a reflection of the teacher. Right. I know sometimes the big concern is like, well, if I let this kid get away with this, it's going to affect the culture of my class. 9 times out of 10, it's not. Like that, the kids in the class know that kid's got stuff too, right? And it's about being empathetic and treating each kid differently, and that will help your culture. Rarely ever, like, first week of school, you'll hear like, well, so and so gets this, why don't I? In December, they're like, yeah, I get it. Right. So it's about highlighting that out. Like, each kid's unique. Don't be rigid. Be flexible. Have empathy, and we'll be successful.
So, like, now that you've been teaching for how many years total?
This is year 11.
Year 11. So, in second year as an admin. So, 2 years done as an admin.
Yeah.
What's kind of like one of the primary issues with the newer teachers that you're kind of seeing come out?
With newer teachers, especially, like, I'm still not that into it, is like, when I was young, and I still see it with some of ours, they really want to establish their culture. They want to have their rules. They want to have their routines, and those are all fine. But if you get a kid who is like ODD, obsessional defiant, right, or a kid who's struggling with like fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, which we see, they're not going to respond to your order. You're going to have to adapt to them. And if you want, and we don't cover that really in teacher school, those two, if you want to make them bend to you, you're going to lose that fight, and they won't learn anything aside from the fact that that teacher doesn't like me. And that's the end result that we don't realize we're putting in kids' head. Like, if a kid leaves the building at the end of the year going like, Mr. Garbuio doesn't like me, I probably failed. Because if the kid doesn't like me, if the kid thinks I don't like him, the kid probably didn't like learning from me, and the kid probably didn't like being in my class. And that I was in control of being able to build that relationship.
And so when you were at Merck before, you were in charge of was it the special education program? Is that correct? Or was it vocational?
Vocational education. I was in there for 3 years. I did in my education program at Acadia University. I was at Horton High for a year, and I worked in their resource room, so heavy, intensive, severe, kids in wheelchairs, kids with severe autism, kids with severe ADHD, and then some of your high functioning, high flyers, honor roll kids who needed just a quiet space, which was unique. And then going to Merck, I did mainstream for 5 years, got into voc ed. Voc ed was more so like, it's not as intensive as like our independent living program at Holy Trinity, but you have kids who are still like not being able to live independently. They're going to need supports. They're going to need to learn how to not be like duped out of their money, how to make good decisions, how to have a job, how to follow instructions. In that program, like, those kids, they don't care if I got 15 degrees or whatever. Like, I need to establish that they know I care about them, and that I'm there to help them, and that I love them, and that we're in this together. Because if I had a moment of weakness and I was barking orders, shut down, not doing this, not happening, and then it's like, all right, well, today's ruined.
So like would ruin a whole day.
It could ruin a whole day of like not doing it. And like, all right, I went too far. Now I'm done. But fortunately, like, a lot of those times, even with like the best, like the studies and like you go to PD sessions, like You try something new tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that was fortunate with it, but if I messed up, like I knew, like I'm not doing work today. I said, all right, well, that's my fault, and I had to accept that. Like that was my fault. I pushed that student far, and I'm the adult. I know what they're capable of, and there's a way to prod them to do a bit more, but like barking orders or whatever isn't gonna work.
Was it hard to like maintain that consistency, like almost, because like that's almost one of the primary things I've heard, because I have a very limited like vocational education kind of background, and so one of the things is like consistency, structure, routine. But like those are easy words to say. Like, how did you kind of implement consistency for those kind of kids, and like what was that like?
You have to do a routine day one, and fortunately, there were really strong EAs in there. It helped me with that. And you have the routine. We're doing this. We're gonna get in. We're gonna open our journals. We're gonna write a bit, and some of the kids aren't able to write, so we gotta. This is a chance to get them to use their assistive tech without marks. You're on your laptop. You type something up. You do your talk to text. You work with a scribe. That getting into that routine of writing in the morning or reading something in the morning and getting into that, and maybe just pick a book that you like, look at the pictures, tell me about it, work through it. But eventually, like, we had a couple of kids who said, I've never read a book in my life. And we got to the point where we're reading 4 books a school year, which is pretty good for kids who are in grade 10 at a grade 2 reading level. Right? Like, I'm reading the book still, but they're in there, they're answering the questions, they know what's going on. And eventually they're going, I want to read this book, typically a book that has a movie coming out or whatever. And they're going out, they want to read the book, and they're using their assistive tech, which, like, kids don't like using that, especially because it makes them feel different. So to build a culture where kids want to use it, and then they can be successful. And we saw kids actually close gaps so much that they actually got out of voc ed. Not to say like that's all but like they went back into a mainstream, and some of them even got. One boy I was just talking to the other day told me he got his I believe his -2 high school, right? And this is a kid who's like in voc ed with significant brain injuries, and then he graduated. He's got his high school diploma. He's like, I'm getting a job as a laborer now.
Okay. So is there like a different like diploma or like certificate for someone who's in vocational ed? Like, what is that like?
It would be like less than a K&E certificate to say like you completed high school, but it's not like something that I would be able to go and apply to go to college or be able to go to university. I would have to go upgrade. So to put someone in voc ed is significant because you are essentially determining a lot of their future. But when done correctly, this could be a quiet space for them to catch up. Like we have seen it used as like a grade 7 knowledge and understanding class, right? Or K&E knowledge and employment, where they close some gaps, get into K&E, close more gaps, get into -2. And then we've seen that. We've seen one boy ended up with a -1, and he was like, wow. He got through it. He battled. He did it. He did the work. And like, so things happen. Things can happen. The kids work hard. Kids get some passion and whatnot. And I was talking to my class about this the other day in social, and we talked 3-1 about how important the printing press is. Like kids being able to read closes a lot of gaps. Like that is a great equalizer. The ability to read and understand and be able to converse, because I can read a book and enter a conversation. Hey, I read The Outsiders too.
Seriously though, like having some sort of commonality with your peers where you don't feel like you're like different. So like, what was kind of what would have been like a benchmark or like a signal to actually move someone from vocational ed to -2? Like,
they were starting to do the way they were answering their work, their ability to do work and keep up. The work was getting too easy. So you're like, we're giving kids like grade 6 level work, which when they're in grade 7 or 8, not too bad, but they're doing it on their own. And then they're making use of their supports, and now they're starting to like outgrow their peers. And then you're like, well, we don't want to stunt them. Let's put them somewhere else where they have to stretch and grow from there. And it wouldn't be like something like, you're out. It's all right, you're going to go 2 classes in mainstream. All right, you're going to do 3. Okay, 4. All right, we're going to give you a block in our class where you could be in here with the people you know. So you're kind of pushing them a little
Stretching a
bit.
little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not like kicking them into the pool and say, hope
Yeah.
you can swim.
Okay.
Right? We're immersing them as opposed to like submerging them into it. And we've seen success with that. And I'm proud of that program. That program's growing. When I got into it, they were at about 6 kids. And now I think the teachers who are doing it right now are amazing. And I think they have 3 full classrooms now.
Okay.
So like parents are comfortable putting their kids in that room because they know that this isn't like final. This is a situation where they can grow.
And so what does so you have an independent learning, is it like a class? Is it like a similar kind of system? Like how is it different at Trinity now with Merck?
That would be people like way more significant. They have significant issues like people in wheelchairs, people who are people whose learning disabilities are more severe.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
we would have people in there who are like grade 1 reading level, grade 2, and we're having severe brain injuries. There's students who have like autism where they're not able to even speak in certain instances. So I'm still becoming more familiar with it, but they're more severe cases.
Yeah, and so would that in the district, are they kind of if a student like is kind of in that like kind of I don't want to like say the wrong word, but like if they're kind of wanting to go into vocational ed, are they kind of encouraged to go to Merck, or is there like like how does that work?
Yeah, you would be like if you're a candidate for the voc ed program, it would be you're going to go to Merck because this program is suited for you versus the SLP where you'll either go there or the JLP, which is or the junior independent living program, which would be at Father Bow.
So like if you had to, so why did you make the switch kind of year 5 from like mainstream to vocational?
I know I wanted to be an administrator.
Okay.
And I did have a passion for special education. I did enjoy that, and I liked working with those kids when I was in teacher school, and that position opened, and I knew I needed to do something to make my resume more significant. And if it was like the perfect point of like, I'm passionate about something, cool, this position will also help me, and I'm able to do both things, and that gave me a good opportunity to try and do something. And that was the big driver, was I needed to stretch my wings and do something challenging, because grade 7 it was fun, but I was at year 5. I was like, I got to do something different. I got to do something different. It wasn't that I wasn't enjoying teaching, because I've never not enjoyed it. Like I really have fun. I just wanted to try a new challenge, and it was a lot, but there was a lot of success from it and a lot of strong relationships built, which I really enjoyed. I really being able to teach the same kids for 3 straight years.
Yeah, you would have had them like in different grades in the same room.
Yes, is really cool. And in my master's, they talk about like the multi-age classes where you have, instead of doing grade 6 and the grade 6s, grade 7, you do 3 years in the same room, and as they grow, you just change their work. So they stay in the same room, and you get that family feel. And the big thing was like those parents trusted me because they knew me for 3 years. So you don't have to do that whole learning thing. You have the same parents for 3 years. They know who you are. They know what you're about. And I thought that was something I took away from it, was how important these relationships are with families and how nice it is to have them year over year, which is something I do get as a vice principal of following grades.
And so I remember I was actually subbing at Merck. I don't know if you remember this conversation or not, but I don't know who I was subbing for. I think it was one of the first times I met you, and you told me that you were starting your master's and like in the fall or something. And I was like, hey, like I was only doing my B.Ed and just doing TAS. And I said, hey, like, what do you need to do your master's? I was like, so whatever. And you looked me dead in the eye and you said $12,000 in a pulse.
And I find with masters is like, I was guilty of this too, where everyone's like, oh, it's a master's. It's something. Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Right. And anyone can go to university, and anyone can. And I really think that's important.
Yeah.
Like I flippant with it up front, but yeah, anyone can do their masters. It doesn't mean anything. It's just to do it.
So how long into your masters are you now?
I got 2 courses left.
Okay.
One, I'll get the one done probably by the end of the fall, and then one has to be done in class, which is different from what my program.
Where are you doing it?
Through Acadia University.
Oh, okay. So you stuck with the old alum, eh?
No, always gonna, yeah. Well, maybe if I ever do a doctorate, I think they have one there too. So
okay. So like, would you consider doing a doctorate? Like, what kind of lane would you look at doing?
I'm really into intrinsic motivation right now.
Okay.
That's been something I've been really fixated on for the last 3 or 4 years. I've been consistent with wanting to figure out how to motivate kids. It was started with the special ed where it's like, how do I get these kids to want to do this work? How do I find ways to make them want to do it? Because they all think they can't. They all think they're dumb. They all think, how do I make a kid? How do I get a kid to believe that?
You identify as that,
And then coaching sports is like, how do I get kids to want to do things and not just be like that external extrinsic motivation where it's like, coach wants me to do this, or my mom wants me to do this, or my parents are expecting this from me. How do I, because that feels cheap, how do I get them to want to think that they believe that they can be here, they can be successful, and this is good for them? It has to be inside.
I find that's such a topic that can be applied almost anywhere, because like one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, I haven't talked to anyone about this yet, because like I still don't really know what it is, like the whole like teacher burnout thing. Because even you mentioned before, like you don't get tired of teaching. Now, obviously, you'll have your days where you're a bit more tired than others, but like, why is it that you think that you don't really like? Do you get burnt out even though like you're still like kind of in it? But
I get tired, but I have really good peers, and I'm in a really good group. And this is after the fact. In one of my courses, I had to read a thing about teacher burnout.
Okay.
And they found that within your first 5 years, that's when you want to quit.
Yeah.
But it came down to peers.
Okay.
And it came down to like who you're supported by. And if you have a good administration, and I had good administrators who really supported me and pushed me and like protected me. And then I have good peers who are like-minded, driven, want to be successful, want to be want to do things and want to do big things. Like I fail a lot and make messes and stuff, but I have these huge goals that I want to like. If I hit them, cool. But if I don't, it's still a big swing. And I have always had people who've said, "Yeah, do that." Like Mrs. MacArthur Poole, who's our superintendent now, she's our first principal. And she's like, "You should do this." And it was like, take your class to the U of A for a week for 3 years. And I was second year teaching. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. This seems cool. It's a free meal. I'm going to go to this meeting. And I was the only one who went to it.
Okay. So you would take a group of students? Like how many?
30.
Okay. To U of A for a week?
Yes.
Okay.
What was that? Residence. And like that was huge. And like I was well over my head. But we went there and we go to the pool. We go to university classes with university professors who come and teach the class.
Cool.
And they would get this experience of being in university. This is back to where I was talking to you about like anyone can go to university.
Yeah.
And that's what we did here. And that was a huge learning thing. And a lot of opportunities wouldn't get pushed to someone who's in their second year. But people saw promise in me and just went. And then I had peers who'd be like, "Yeah, you should do that," or they'd always tell me, "Yeah, try something." And sometimes it works, sometimes it flops, but I think if you have like these big goals, these long-term goals that you want to chase and you want to make your work meaningful, I think that drives it. Like when we were talking in the spring, and you're like, "I really want to work on these my diploma scores." Like year over year, you have this big goal, but you have like, I'm going to go to this and I'm going to do these things. And like you have these things you want to do that make you want to become better and you're passionate about it.
So even if you don't reach the goal, the pursuit of the goal is worthwhile in and of itself. Is that kind of like what your experience has been?
Yeah. And that's where like the intrinsic thing that I'm talking about, like, why do I want to do something? Am I wanting to, like, when we talk, it's like, you're not saying like, well, I got pressure on me to get better at this. It's like, I want to do this. I want to be a better teacher. I want to be the best at this. And it's all intrinsic pursuit. And having people around you push you and guide you and support you and tell you yes is really important. And like, this profession is like any other where there are negative people who will say like, oh, they're just going to say no. Or when they do say no to them, they're like, oh, everyone just says no. I get told no probably more than anyone in this entire division. Like, because I ask for so much, right? Like,
you're shooting your shot.
I get told no. And like, never do I go back and I was like, man, this sucks. It's like, well, I gotta, you know what? I gotta come up with a better plan because that one wasn't good. So like, like, if my plan gets told no, it's because I failed and I didn't come up with a better plan.
But then you don't identify with being a failure. You're like, oh, that failed. Let's just try it again. I think that's the important part.
I'm not going to go back to them and be like, well, here's the same plan, but it's a year later. It's like, no, I got this, I got this, I got this. This is the idea. This is where I'm coming from. I've talked to these people. Like, I have to do my due diligence. And I've never had people be like, no, and don't try this again. It's like, no, you have to. And when I am around people who are like, this is a bummer, whatever, this place sucks. It is what it is. I don't take, that's their experience. I'm very happy and I like the challenge and I like to pursue things. And football team, we lose every year in the provincial quarterfinals and significantly. And I'm still going to go back to work the next day and be like, you know what? Next week we're back in the gym and we're going to try something new and we're going to try and figure this out. And I like challenges. I like the pursuit. I like the idea of chasing my tail rather than catching it.
So what are some of the things that you like tried to do but like we're told no? Like wait, what were some of them?
Some of my flops would be like I'm trying to think right now. Some of the ones like I wanted to start a track club.
Okay.
That's still going, but I just didn't have like the steam. Like I didn't have the follow through on that, the steam. Trying to get a unified team that I used to have at Merck. I'm trying to get one at Trinity, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get the funding to go down to this event.
Okay.
I need the parents involved because the SLP, like they're significant.
What's an SLP?
Like the SILP program, like those kids that are like they're special ed kids over at. For them to participate in it, it's the events in Edmonton. I need their parents to come, so then I got to figure out that funding. So that's something like that's a dream, but I want to get that one going. When I was at Merck, I really tried hard to get. I was trying to get a bus for the for the football team because we traveled so much with Brendan Toner, and like we just couldn't find the funding, and like so those are things like some of them are just huge shots.
Like to get a bus like for athletics for the city.
Like we talked about it, and then just finding funding is tough to get going. Those have been my big ones where it's like, and like I'm thinking about it now. You didn't have much of a plan. So,
but you're just kind of like hoping.
And I'm trying and like figuring it out, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and nothing's ever like I go back and those guys they're squashing me. It's hard to I need lines so I know where to color it, right? I need to those boundaries help me figure out where to go. Like no's just push me into a direction of guiding. Like
it just tells you where you're not going, kind of thing.
And like budgeting stuff, like I really struggled with that at the start with like a football program. And like fortunately, like I don't know, in other world where like a football coach gets to talk with the superintendent of finance and he actually supports you in how to do a budget and shows you how to do these things and like get better at that finance one. Because when I do my like skill analysis that you have for your leadership quality standard, like what areas you're strong in, like budgeting, resource management, all of that, like one, right? So, but having like probably the best person in the division help you
sitting down with you,
and like, he's helped me get better. Our budgeting's much tighter now with the Saints. Even now when I'm thinking about questions of cost when I'm doing the athletic stuff at Holy Trinity, that's now in my head, liability and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to say I was reckless because I'm not a risk taker by any stretch, but now I have different variables in my head when I'm thinking.
So like what? Like,
liability, insurance,
like in terms
stuff.
of what the school is liable for, like if something happens to the student.
Yeah, like if I'm just like, hey, we got a team offered us a game in Edmonton.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna rent a bus and go out there, no permission slips. We're just gonna play football, right? Like, I've never done that, but those are the types of things. Like, do the parents know what their kids are doing? Do the kids know what's on the trip? When we're going on a trip, and this is something that's like came up with me in the past, where I was like, we're in Edmonton. The game's over. We're supposed to be back that night. Hey, let's go to the mall for 2 hours. Right?
Yeah, just kind of making the game time decisions.
Let's go to the mall for 2 hours, and then it's like, well, no, that's not on your permission slip. So the parents don't know, like, what happens if something happens to the kid at the mall? Like, parents are like, I didn't say that my kid could go to West Edmonton Mall. I didn't say my kid could do this. I didn't say this. My kid spent $300 at the mall. Like, you didn't say that you're going there. Like I gave my kid my credit card for food, and then you go to the mall, and then he acts like a teenager and does something on impulse, right? Like, having to be aware of what your clientele is, right? Like, a group of 40-something teenagers are going to,
especially on a team, like not just like random teenagers who are thrown together, like they're all trying to like get each other to do like something stupid,
right? Like, those are the types of things that you have to keep in mind, because again, well, I'm the adult. Like, I'm this person. I have this title. I have this responsibility. Like, I can't deflect to be like, oh, that's that guy's problem. No, that's my problem.
When we were on, like, we went down to zones for track in St. Paul. And I remember all the other coaches were, because we were the only school that brought 2 coaches, myself and Moreno, and they were all in at the coaches meeting. So I was on the bus with 51 students, and I was the only teacher there. And like, I had a moment where I was like, oh shit. I was like, I'm the person who needs to like maintain order for all of these students right now, because we were gonna go over to Tim Hortons while the 2 coaches or the other 3 coaches were still inside. So I'm like, okay, I need to do like a head count. Like, you kind of go from like realizing you're the adult in the room is a weird experience, especially in athletics. Like, usually if you're ever involved in athletics, you're one of the people playing. It's just kind of part of it. But like, realizing you're the adult and knowing like, oh, if anyone even just like trips getting out of the bus here, like something happens where I'm involved here. So that was like a weird transition too. But
and that's the part where it's like, that growth of like pushing upwards, and where you're trying to get more responsibility. But you're going to, as you take on more responsibility, you have to be more aware of more things. That's the whole purpose of trying to become more successful and trying to having more responsibilities. You can't do that without getting some sort of awareness of, hey, if I mess up, if this goes wrong,
there's larger ramifications for me messing up the higher you kind of go.
And like, if I messed up in the classroom, that's one thing. If I mess up as a positional coach, that's one thing. If I mess up as a vice principal, that's different. If I mess up as a principal, that's different. Versus like, if a superintendent messes up, like, those are all significant. Like, the higher up you are, the bigger your mistakes are. Right? Or more weight to your
mistakes.
And that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about when they get upset with people telling them no, where it's like, they're not doing it to attack you. They're doing it because we all have things we're accountable to, and we have to make sure that if we're going to take this risk, it has to be calculated. It has to be. I've read this thing this morning on Farnham Street, and he was saying the most successful people aren't the people who take the biggest risks, but the people who are the most prepared and most assured of like what's going to happen. And like, you have to know it.
Fail to plan to fail, something like that. So now that you're kind of almost done your master's, about 11 years in, do you wish you had done your master's earlier?
No.
Okay.
No. I think I was talking to a teacher about this, and he did his master's 3 years in, and he said he didn't have much to pull from.
Okay.
Because a lot of my master's mine's in curriculum, and a lot of it is pulling experiences and writing about your experiences and using those as the bedrock of my stuff. And if I didn't teach that voc ed class, that's pretty much the foundation of a lot of my curriculum stuff that I'm pulling from, information from. A lot of my successes and failures in there. Like, I think I was trying to do like a group audiobook once and like flopped, just absolute flop. Like 3 kids in the class didn't like it, and like, this sucks. This book sucks. I'm not answering these questions. Just flopped.
Yeah.
And like learning to sometimes in the middle of a novel study, I'm not doing this for another 3 weeks. Like, we're done with this book.
Toss it aside.
What do you all want to read?
Yeah.
Willy Wonka, cool.
Yeah.
Let's go. Class set. We're going. Here's the questions. Like in my first year, I would have been, we're doing this. You kids are doing this, and I wouldn't have had that experience for my papers. And like year 4, I started to work with more kids with fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, and that was really meaningful. And that's something I also pull from in my work, and I find that super helpful.
So what did you pull from it, specifically with fetal alcohol syndrome?
That consequences don't change behavior. So if I consequence kids with fetal alcohol syndrome, I'm doing that to satisfy myself and my ego while not changing any of that behavior. There's a kid every day with a pen and you just bang pen and like first couple of days, like, you do that again, you're getting a detention. Right? Detention. And I got to spend lunch with the kid, and he's miserable at me, and he's still doing it. And then I went to a couple of sessions, and it was like, just take the pen and then give him something soft. And I did that. He's doing the same thing, but it's something soft. And it's not going to, it's the removal of activity is greater than the consequence. And then it salvages the relationship. And there was a bunch of kids like that who I was working with, where it's like, I could consequence you and give you a detention, and they don't learn from it. Right? It's like it's the issues with the brain damage that they have. They can't learn from that. So why am I going to do that to satisfy whom? It doesn't make
honestly. This was one of I wouldn't say a major, but one of the bigger kind of internal debates at McTavish this year. And I don't want to say anyone's perspective, but we essentially implemented a detention kind of I wouldn't say a detention program, but essentially implemented detention where if you skipped classes or missed tests in high school without being excused, you could potentially be in it. But it was mostly junior high. Do you have detention at Holy Trinity? And if not, why not? What is your perspective after being in vocational ed and teaching grade 7 for 5 years? Essentially, what are the ages that's most likely, I guess, to kind of have a behavior infraction? What do you think about that?
I'm super soft.
Yeah.
So saying that on the front end, I'm really soft.
What would make you give a kid a detention even now?
I'll give detentions if it's and it all a lot depends on I'm big on the individual.
Yeah.
I think it was the term. I'm a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan. He did this series on casuistry. It's called, where it's you focus on
what, sorry?
Casuistry.
Okay.
And it's it's a way to make decisions on moral dilemmas. I don't know if it's if it's old Roman times, but it's about the idea is about the focus on the specific and excluding the general. So each individual student should have their own individual punishments because each individual student's their own person.
Okay.
Now that's hard to apply
as a massive school.
Yes, and it's hard to explain that to different people because some people want blood. They're this person did this, they deserve that problem. Yeah. And for certain things, there needs to be flat consequences, violence, theft, those things. Yeah. Impulse stuff I struggle with, especially if that's where I'd like to do more of it. Someone takes a pencil or someone does that and if I do have to give a detention, which is I do give detentions, I need them to leave the room knowing that I still think they're good, a good person, and your mistake doesn't represent who you are.
Yeah.
So that might be where the person leaves the room, like, oh, it's nothing getting a punishment from Mr. Garbuio. But I think it's important that they know, like, that mistake was wrong.
Yeah.
They know why the mistake was wrong, and then we grow from it. There's more issues with middle school, obviously.
Yeah.
But they're also in that point with their brain development where they're figuring
the impulse
themselves.
isn't as bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's my who am I? What's my personality? Am I the kid who gets in trouble? Am I the kid who talks back? Am I the nerd? Am I the teacher's pet? Am I the this, that, the jock? They're trying on a million personalities, and what am I? Who am I? And in grade 8, when they're really impulsive and really making bad decisions, I really feel it's hard, but you have to figure out a way to, like, help them grow with it and learn from, like, hey, that mistake can't be repeated. And like the consequence can't be the behavior change. It's more so like the why what you did was wrong.
Yeah, because I had supervision for detention, and every 4th day with like a 4-day schedule. And so one of my supervisions, I would go in. I was usually with another teacher in there, but it was always the same students. It was always like the same kind of 15 or 20. And again, like being in the high school, especially in social, like -1, and this year I didn't even teach any grade 10. It was just 20-1 and 30-1 and 30-2. So, and again, like being full-time teaching experience, I'm only like a year and a half in, and other than like 2 kind of years, I guess, of subbing. But like, it just didn't feel like it worked. But like, I even felt as a teacher, like, I don't know, like, is there something I can say to these kids? Like, where it wasn't me that put them in detention. Like, I'm just kind of supervising the room. So I'm like, what role could I have had being their day 4 supervisor and trying to, like, not fix their problem, but like help them, I guess, kind of understand why, or like, I don't even really know what I'm asking, but you know kind of what I'm saying there.
I have a friend who works in like addiction services. He's a social worker that specializes in that, and I was asking him, what do I do with kids who vape?
And that's rampant even in high school now.
So what do I do? And he said, and he's a pushover like me, but he said consequence will only entrench bad behavior when it deals with addictive things like vaping. Like, they're doing it because there's a reason. There's something that there's a need they're trying to meet. Right. And he said, like, look at the war on drugs, or look at stuff like that. Like the big past education, but like it's not changing behavior. And he said the biggest thing he does whenever he catches a kid vaping or talks to a kid who's vaping, like, why are you doing it? And I did that a few times this year. I still give them a consequence because it was our policy, but why are you doing this? And they're like, well,
are they like alarmed with that question?
Yeah. Like, I feel like that's a greater consequence.
Yeah.
Like, they gotta, like, you're sitting in the mud.
Why are you putting me on blast, man?
You're in the mud. Like, why are you doing this? So what is it? Are you addicted to this?
Like, what kind of answers did you get? If you can
addiction,
share.
Addiction. Like, I feel I have to. I want to.
Like an itch.
It's a desire, right? A lot of it is that. It's a desire. So then you're trying to figure out how to navigate that, where it is a problem. You can't do that. If they were smoking a cigarette in the school, it'd probably be in a greater consequence. Additionally, how are we going to get this addiction support for these kids? Like, are we allowed to bring in social workers? That's expensive. There's only so many social workers. So there's like big questions, like, and I don't know if detention's going to be like, but detention's also a way, like, to show that I'm doing something, right? Like, even the presentation, there's probably like your fringe kids who are like could go either way, and a detention would just rot them.
Yes. Because that was, I even asked them. So one day, like, one of the other teachers I was supervising with, they left the room for a bit. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask them. I was like, do you guys think this works?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we think it's hilarious. I'm just like, so again, like they all think like they're all in there just trying to like make each other laugh, one up each other. Like it was never effective. But even like as soon as they said that, like I was stumped. I was like, I don't even know. I was like, maybe we could do that where like I don't want to say like maybe we should have them write lines, but like, is there a way? Let's just say if like can you have like education on vaping as detention? Like, is that like a thing that you could do?
I thought
Like, what
that
is
would be
the
like getting them to learn about like, and not just from the slideshow, but people, the
yes,
actual like, hey, this is a problem. This is something that's happening. These are the addictions. Like people do it because they do it because it's better than smoking. Is
Yeah.
I think what they say.
Yeah.
But the studies show the kids who start vaping end up smoking cigarettes later.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty much like your guiding light towards cigarette use and other tobacco uses.
Yeah.
But I don't think detention's the part of it. I think for a lot of kids, a fine would be something like
Yeah,
something
if you're doing it on school grounds, like technically you're like
something in this community where money and monetary possession is huge.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be, but I feel like there's like I'm not qualified to go into it because I don't have a psychology or anything.
Whatever.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that that's what need is wanting because there's
Yeah.
something where our kids are vaping a lot, and I know this isn't a Fort McMurray issue. This is every school.
Like it's not a craving; it's like a need. Like
And
they don't like we see it as a craving, but they see it as a need. So it's kind of like a disconnect there.
Like why are you doing this? And there's an addiction to it, and like the whole aspect of how powerful that stuff is and how programmed it is for kids to want to use it. And I don't feel detentions stop it.
Yeah.
I do like calling home on that and telling parents,
okay,
like, hey, I caught your kid doing this.
Yeah.
This might be warranting a conversation for you to have.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the parents to know.
That's a good way to do it too, because you're not being like, you need to talk to your kid about this.
Yeah.
It's like this could warrant a conversation.
Yeah.
Because you're not like to call a parent, you're kind of like accusing them of bad parenting if their kid's vaping, but like, they might not actually know. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like a different thing too. But are you seeing vaping as like more prevalent even in junior high?
I think I think it is. I don't catch it very often, but like I know what's happening. I think it is. I think like kids are gonna want to take risks, and people are gonna want kids are gonna want to do things.
The social clout a little bit of like, oh, I vaped in the gym or whatever. Yeah.
And like their addictions, their vaping. It's like they want to do things. They want to take risks. They want to establish an identity, and if a kid wants to their identity to be the kid who like vapes or the kid who like does this or the kid who breaks rules, like, it's an easy one to do. Yeah. Right. Like,
so like even so, I haven't told anyone this, and I don't know. You might anyway. One of my classes this year, all of a sudden like I'm over at my desk, and all of a sudden like I look over, and one of my students, I immediately see like they're like this. I see the little cloud. And I go up. And I didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But I felt like in that moment almost like a shock. Mm-hmm. Almost like a disrespect for doing it in my room.
Yeah.
But also not really knowing how to engage there. Like I was like, I know there's a consequence for it, and like, but I felt like even though I knew there was a consequence for it, I didn't know how to react. So mm-hmm. like, what would you have done? Like, obviously now that you're kind of more seasoned, I don't know if maybe like I know this person like pretty well. We had a good relationship, so maybe I didn't want to like sour that by like being mean. But I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
I think for me, so first time I dealt with vaping was 2016. A kid vaped on the football bus.
Oh, okay.
And
was that mostly like weed then, though? Because I felt like vaping started as like smoking pot.
I think it was. I couldn't tell the difference, but I saw the plume, and it was like one of the big. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What? There's no rule against this. It only says no cigarettes on it because this was at the start of it." And I'm like, "I know this is wrong. Like, you shouldn't be doing this." I don't know what the consequence is because I didn't know what it is. So I went back to school and I was like, "Hey, we got an issue with this vaping thing."
Yep.
And they're like, "Well, we'll start consequencing it." Now, if I was in a class that a kid were to vape, like that'd be depending on what time of class, probably call them into the hallway, take it from them, but make sure I send it to the office too. Be like, this kid's doing this, and it would definitely be a phone call home, and I would have a conversation with them again about the why conversation is very uncomfortable for them too. Like,
but it's even kind of like, I find, again, like I'm a big pushover. Like I'm a softie. Like I want my kids to like enjoy being in my class, but like I almost find I don't know how to flip that switch sometimes. And the thing is, when the switch is flipped, I almost feel like I'm not able to control it. It's like when I do get pissed, it's because I'm actually pissed off, not because I'm trying to discipline you as a caring adult. It's like I'm actually pissed off. It doesn't happen that often, but like even in that moment, I remember, like, I think I actually handled it. I mean, I definitely could have gone more, but I remember saying their name, and I'll be like, I never want to see that again. So that did happen. I did say that, and I think they even kind of like I don't think they knew I saw them. So I think that was what played in there. But yeah, I guess
I think it's important to set boundaries. Like as a teacher, as like, I can be friendly with you. Yeah. I am a teacher. I do believe like teacher students being equal, like coach athlete is equal. Like I have a job to do, you have a job to do, our jobs align. So I do value like, hey, you have the ability to tell me like, I don't like this assignment. Here's feedback I would give, like as I can give feedback to you on your assignment.
Like with some reciprocity.
But I'm not gonna show you up. You doing that in my room in front of all these kids is essentially you showing me up. Be like, I don't respect this guy. Like, there's a rule in the classroom. Know there's a rule in this building. You violating that rule in my room is not you respecting me, but you actively disrespecting me, and I wouldn't do that to you. And I always make sure to hit that back where it's like, I wouldn't disrespect you like that in a public setting. What gives you the right to do that to me?
To listen to this conversation, and hopefully you enjoyed the conversation just as much as I did. If there are any issues with professional conduct, and or you would like to share your own story, experience, or something you would like to contribute to the show, please reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com or send a direct message on Instagram to @mrclark.afterdark. Hope you enjoyed, potentially found something of use, and of course, please do not forget to subscribe. See you next time, unless you're scared.